What's up? It's Culturally Damaged. It is Thursday, and it's about 3:30ish. We're never really starting on a particular time, but we are going to do a show today, and we're going to talk to you about several things. What's up, Dan? How's things going?
I'm doing pretty good, Chris. Things are going well. I can guarantee our listeners we will not be doing any chip challenges today. So,
how was your old bottom after that one? Did everything work itself out?
We're not going to really get into the graphic discussion about that, but things were pretty good. But
I didn't ask for details. I was just wondering if you were all right.
I think so. I think everything was okay. Nothing. I didn't have to go to the hospital or something. So, or no concerns about calling doctors. So, no WebMD checks or anything.
Well, I had to host trivia that night. And I'll just tell you that I had a big Elaine Seinfeld salad after dinner with a lot of roughage.
A lot of fiber.
Yeah, and it was it made for an interesting night of trivia. Let's just say that. But no more chip challenges, even though that I won. And I am the grand chip champion of the world. I do thoroughly regret doing that. That was one of the most painful things that I've ever had to go through in my life. So thanks a lot. Good idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd recommend it again. But, who knows? We'll see what the kids are doing next year, and maybe we'll find some other challenge.
Yeah, maybe they're sticking nails in their eyelids. Maybe we can do that one. Sounds like fun. We're kind of like an older version of Jackass now, apparently. But hey, we made it. We're alive. And lots of things going on in the past week. As you know, on our show, we always talk about sports and we talk about politics. This week in sports, we saw some news just the other day that 4 Lightning players are going to be in the NHL All-Star Game, which is playing here in Tampa Bay. So kind of exciting.
Is it 4 or is it 5? I know we have a whole line going. I think there was a 5th that might not be a starter. But I think we might have a 5th one who's not a starter because I know it was... Well,
ask Bonesy, our fact checker back behind you there.
Yeah.
Hey, Bonesy, is it 4 or 5? He's going to get back to us on that.
So, yeah. But anyway, no, it's really good. I don't get a chance to watch too much of the Lightning this year, but I do pay attention, and it's pretty amazing that we have, 2 players that I think are... first and third as far as points are concerned.
Now, how do you calculate points? Now, there's goals and there's assists, but how do you get points? Like, I'm not a hockey guy. I'm from West Virginia.
I think you get 1 point for each a goal and 1 point for an assist. It's different though in basketball. You get an assist for the person who passes it to the person who shoots it, and you get an assist. So in hockey, you can get it's either the 2 passes before, so you get an extra assist in hockey. So that's why you'll see some of these guys. You'll see 4 assists, but only 2 goals in the night.
Okay, so what do you get if you kick someone's ass in a fight? Do you get anything? Do you get points for that?
No, you get nothing. Nothing at all.
Well, in my book, you get street credit, and I think that is just as important as any point system that's in NHL. How about the one thing I like about hockey is the Gordie Howe hat trick. Are you familiar with the Gordie Howe hat trick? Every now and then you'll hear that players get a Gordie Howe hat trick, which is...
I have heard of it.
It's a variation of a player scores goals, records assists, and gets in a fight.
Oh, okay.
In the same game. To me, that means you are a well-rounded individual.
Well, the fighting in hockey is becoming a rare thing. So
really,
well, it's they're trying to get it out of the game. Yeah, there's not as many players. There's no longer you no longer have your goons that are on the team that are pretty much there just to fight. So
that's a shame. That's like putting speed limits in NASCAR.
It's like doing away with the designated hitter.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just a couple guys. That's all they can do.
Let's just take some fun out of the game.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Rays.
All this concussion talk and all this other I think that's actually the biggest reason why.
Oh,
it's because of concussions.
You don't hear a lot of concussion talk in hockey. It's always in football.
It is. Although I think hockey has a big issue with it though too.
They just don't complain about it, right?
It's just not as...
They can't speak English, so we don't know when they're complaining about it.
They're also... But those are the same guys who, have broken bones and fight. I mean, not fight, but they play with broken legs, broken shoulders. They get a puck in the face, and they go to intermission and get a couple things of cotton stuffed in their mouth, and they go back out on the ice.
You never want to be a puck face, that's for sure.
No.
Hey, later on in the month, or maybe even early next month, I'd like to bring on my friend Alex Reed, who calls the games down in Fort Myers. We can get him on the phone, and he can tell us some really funny stories. He's the voice of the Everblades down in Fort Myers, and he's agreed to be on the show, so we ought to set that up and do that. That should be a lot of fun. We also had Alabama winning the national championship, just as I predicted in my bowl pick'ems.
Well, I didn't predict. Well, the outcome was incorrect, but my analysis of the Alabama team was correct though as well. In that Jalen Hurts, I said I was a little concerned about Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he was going to have enough to do it, and lo and behold, I was right about Jalen Hurts. I just didn't think there was another freshman quarterback from Hawaii that would come in and
there was no area on your form for me to give you a point for that, though. So, according to the points, I did win. But you're right. And how about the guts that it took? And I don't want to talk about this for a long time because everyone else has talked about it. But how about the guts from Alabama's coach to put in a backup freshman quarterback in a national championship game when your starter, Jalen Hurts, is 24-2 as a starter. That was a good move, and that's why he's the man.
It worked out, and I think it was one of those also that the reality is they weren't going to win with Jalen Hurts in the game. At least that was his opinion, and so at that point you just but like you said, but I don't know. I mean, to me, even if they had lost that game by putting in the freshman, it would have seemed like the right decision, just because if Jalen is not running outside and hitting the corner and getting down the line, he's not effective.
Well, he's certainly not a passing quarterback. He hasn't been all year. They've been able to get behind that strong line of theirs, but they went up against a team who had just as good a defensive line as they had an offensive line, so they were really having trouble running between the tackles. And Jalen Hurts couldn't get the ball downfield, throwing the ball. But the one thing that justified the entire decision was the final pass that the young Hawaiian quarterback made in the fourth quarter, or in overtime. The pass that he made down the sidelines where he looked off the safety and threw the ball in a perfect frozen rope down the field. What a game. Nice playoff. You'd like to see a bigger play. At least I would like to see a bigger playoff system. What do you think about UCF claiming themselves as the national champions?
I think UCF is a joke for claiming that they're a national champion, but that's just me.
Okay,
but I'm also a USF grad. So.
Okay, but let me go ahead and make the argument. Okay, first off, full disclosure, I am not a UCF fan. I went to Marshall. We both came up in the 1A at the same time. We've battled for a while. We've kind of lost our edge. They've kind of gotten a little better than us, a lot better than us in the last 10 or so years. But full disclosure, being said,
what goes up must come down.
Right. Being being said, they didn't deserve a place in the playoffs. They beat one Power 5 team, and that was Maryland. And they didn't beat them that badly. They had close games with Memphis, close games with USF. However, being devil's advocate here, they did put it on an Auburn team, and I think I know your argument that they weren't there to play, they didn't care, they were playing UCF. But how many years in a row, or how many years are we going to have these group of 5 mid-level teams come into a New Year's Eve Day bowl game and upset the other team, and how many times are we going to hear that excuse that they just weren't up for it?
Well, we're probably going to hear it for many years to come as far as it goes. And I don't know, I did watch part of that game. Auburn, I mean, they didn't seem to be disinterested in the game and not playing, but it is an issue. UCF obviously had a lot more to play for from their standpoint, for the pride and all the other stuff, what they can do.
Well, Auburn didn't do anything for their conference.
No.
Now they are in a state in which their rivals are national champions, and they were beaten by a group of 5 school. So if you ask me, they did have a lot to play for, and their pride is enough to play for. My dad and I were actually talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and tell me what you think here. And if we have anybody listening, call in or text.
We're on Facebook.
Yeah. Yes, we are on Facebook. Let us know what your opinion of this is. But we're thinking about, 16-team playoff. You got 10 conference champions.
But wait.
Okay,
these are college students. You can't have people playing all these games.
You're not even letting me finish, man. You're not even letting me finish. Okay, so here we go. Starting all over before I was rudely interrupted. 10 conference championships, 10 conference champions go in. So you got 10 teams. You take 6 at large. You take the season down from 12 games to 11 games. You continue to do your 30 or so bowl games that really nobody cares about so that we can maintain that corporate bowl structure that we have now. We play the first game at the home of the highest seed. We're going to reseed, just like we do in basketball at the beginning of the tournament. So you put 16 teams in a hat, your 6 highest ranked teams that aren't conference champions, and then your 10 conference champions. You put them all in, you seed them. You play the first round at the highest seeded team. So this year, say for instance, you'd probably have Appalachian State playing at Alabama in the first round. Not going to be a big game, but it's the tournament. It's going to be exciting. They're going to pack the house for it. It's their first game. The second game you do bowls. Third game you do bowls, and then in a championship game is a bowl too. But you rotate your big bowls in that way. So now proceed with your rebuttal, sir.
The first one is just a matter of it's the old argument that a lot of people try to make as far as about increasing it is that the players can't do this and it's too hard on the players and they have exams and
Let's
yada
poll
yada
the
yada.
players. Let's poll the players.
Well, but the other side of it is that whatever they call bowl subdivision this, bowl subdivision that, but what used to be Division 2 and 3 have these playoffs and they play all these extra games and they go through these things with finals, and so really essentially what those people care about they just care about the people in the large conferences. We don't actually care about players who are playing lower division football when they make that because they're already doing it.
If we have another rebuttal argument, I would like to hear it. I know I'm not the first person to come up with this. I've actually heard another idea, too, where we make every Power 5 conference go to 2 divisions, and we take each division champion and put them in, and that way I believe it puts you at 15 teams, and then, 15 teams, and then you take an at-large and you put them in, too. So UCF gets in as an at-large in that category. But, you only have one team from your Power 5 conference. Plus you have conferences like the Big 12 that's going to have to add about 4 teams to their conference in order to get to 2 divisions.
This is really starting to sound like participation trophies to me. So
that's exactly what it's not, Dan, because you're playing for a true champion. And that is how you crown a true champion. Right now you have participation trophies because UCF is putting up a flag saying that they are national champions when nobody recognizes it but themselves and their goofball president over there. What a joke. If that's the case, Marshall's a 1999 national champion. I want a ring. I'm going to get a jacket. I'm going to get a shirt. I'm going to hang a flag. I mean, it's a joke.
I just don't. I don't want to see 16 teams. I'm fine with 4. If they go to 8, I'm okay with that. But I don't think it needs to go anywhere near beyond 8. And partly it's just because I don't think that there's 8 teams out there, or more than 8, that have any real claim that they should be national. That they've played a schedule enough.
Man. That's why you play.
Well, I just think 8's enough. I don't need. Because even in an 18 playoff, you're likely to have to. Do the home and away or home games type stuff too, because you're at 8 games. You're asking a team's fans to possibly go to 3 games or something. And national title game is not always fan heavy, but it's hard to sell those tickets to multiple games that teams are playing.
That is a valid point. I think in college basketball it's a lot easier because you can get locals from big cities where you have these regional tournaments where you put the regional brackets and then you put the Final Four. You have teams that can fill up a Coliseum. Filling up a football stadium would definitely be tougher, but that's where the corporate presence becomes involved. They start buying up tickets, giving them to employees. I mean, let's look at all the bowls that we have right now. They're garbage. I mean, there's bowls that we saw where there were probably 1,000 people there. The teams were hardly trying. We had them in cold temperatures. The bowl system's broken, really needs fixed. And 16 teams works fine. I was a fan of 1AA football when Marshall was 1AA, and I'll be honest with you, it was a lot more fun watching a 16-team playoff than it is watching Marshall play in New Mexico, Little Caesars, Dollar General, GMAC, or the Gasparilla Beef O'Brady's Bowl every year. It's a lot more fun.
Bad Boys Mower Gasparilla Bowl.
Bad Boys Mowers. Your ass is grass, and we're the mowers. All right. Well, hey, let's talk.
The only thing is, I just especially with the divisions, I don't know. I don't want to see. There's too many weeks. I think we're going to end up with blowouts in those college those playoff games.
There was a guy about 30 or 40 years ago that sat in that same seat and said, man, we should not do a 64-team NCAA playoffs. It's too much. We're going to get blowouts in the first round. Do we have blowouts in the first round? Of course we have blowouts in the first round. When we have schools that we've never heard of playing teams like Duke, there's going to be blowouts. But you know what? Every now and then, one of those 14, 15s, and even 16 seeds going to win. They might not win the whole tournament, but they're going to win. And it's going to be so exciting for everybody to sit there and watch it and pull for the underdog. It's going to be a lot of fun. The counter-argument is basketball is not football. But any given Sunday, my man, anybody can win. Appalachian State beats Michigan in the Big House. Marshall, even, I hate to keep bringing up Marshall, really I don't because I like to plug them. But Marshall beats number 5, Kansas State. It happens every year, man. A top 5 team goes out to a little group of 5 school. It can happen.
Yeah, I don't want to see that happen in football. I want to see the big boys play.
Okay, is that your Florida side, your Marshall side, or your USF side, or your St. Pete College side?
That's just my
You're
my
like Sarah
side.
Palin. You went to like 9 schools.
Hey. I'm gonna put that after each one of my on my business card now.
Each university or Sarah Palin?
Each university.
All right. Well, I would really like to see a different bowl system, so we'll agree to disagree on that. But if I were you, a home listening, I would take it from the person who won the most bowl picks and has more college football knowledge, and that would be
He just got lucky. That's all it was.
And it could be the person who can handle hot food a little bit better, which would be myself too.
What do we have here?
I believe there is a garbage truck outside.
Sometimes we have so many technical difficulties here. I never know whether it's us making the noise or.
How's your diet going, man? You look good. You look a lot thinner than you looked when we first started the show, even, which was not that many weeks ago.
No, the diet actually is going pretty good. So I hit 39 pounds today.
Wow.
So
that is awesome.
So
Congratulations, 39 pounds. That is something to be proud of.
And it's it takes a little while to get used to eating less, so which is good. So your body, gets used to it, and it's not that big of a deal, really. So
our bodies do adapt. That's one thing the human body definitely does. I mean, tell our viewers, like, there might be some people out there interested in dieting. It's the new year. What have you done to lose so much weight in such a small amount of time besides just eating less? I mean, is it structured in any way? Are you doing anything? Are you exercising at all? Or how's that working?
Well, I use my Fitness Pal app, and so that does help. You log your calories. It's essentially calorie counting. It's something similar to what Weight Watchers would do, or different things, except obviously using their system and everything. But you're counting calories, and so you're putting it in. You put in everything that you eat, and I don't do it every day, but eventually you get to know what you're eating and all that kind of stuff. So if I were to go out to a restaurant, though, I would use it more because I don't know exactly what's in each thing and all that kind of stuff. That makes it easier. But on top of that is just I start walking to the dog park, so you add in a little bit of exercise, but it's been. A lot of it's been just watching what I eat, and there's no more bags of potato chips, and you eat a half a bag of potato chips with some sour cream and onion dip, and then you maybe have some Chick-fil-A for dinner.
All right, quit talking about it. Sounds delicious.
We went to those boneless chicken wings for lunch over those lovely tater tots.
Yes, and you demanded that they be on top of the tater tots.
Yes, that's
and if
right.
They weren't, the one time that you did complain,
that's right.
I have to bring that up.
Yes,
that was very
yes, I was about to go medieval.
Danny want tater tots.
Yeah.
Well, I too am dieting. I'm not having quite the success that you are having, but I too am counting my calories, but I'm doing a little bit, as you know, I'm doing it a little bit differently. I am taking the keto diet route, which allows me to be able to really not be hungry. I just have to be careful what I eat. It's sort of like the Atkins diet, but it is low carb. However, the big difference is that you're not doing a lot of protein, so you can't just eat grilled chicken all day or fried chicken all day, because you're trying to get less protein actually. Because the theory is that you only need enough protein to build or maintain muscles. And that you're eating like 75% fat, but the fat's not all coming from really bad fats. You're eating a lot of avocados, you're eating a lot of nuts, you're eating a lot of eggs and things like that. So I'm trying to stay at 5% carbohydrates, which is very difficult. So I've actually come up with a little thing myself called, and I made this up yesterday. It is called 929. No, 282.
You didn't steal this from Tom Brady, did
282.
you?
No, I made this up yesterday because I was trying to think. I want to stay at 2,000 calories or under a day, and that's hard to do when you're eating all fatty foods. By the way.
Yeah.
Second, I want to get 8,000 steps a day.
That's not easy either.
8,000 steps
for
a
working
day.
in an office, that's for sure.
It's not. Like yesterday, I took a walk here, and then I took a walk when I got home. But I gotta stay above my dad. I got my dad a Fitbit, and he's kicking my butt. He's 67 years old, and he's kicking my butt because he's so active. So I try to get 8,000. And the third one is that I stay at least 8%. I think I got the numbers all wrong, but I think I stay at 8% carbohydrates. From all the things that I eat, only 8% are carbohydrates, net carbohydrates. So
isn't that 3% above what you're supposed to? And you
yeah,
could say 5%.
It is, but on my what you have to do is you got to count net carbs.
So wait, what you're saying is you're special and you don't have to follow the rules.
So carbohydrates minus the grams of fiber are your net carbohydrates. And that's one thing I learned from reading up on this keto diet. And so a lot of times when I put it in my phone, it doesn't count net. It only gives you total. So that's why I say 8. I think that's rounding it up and high enough to where if you did net, it would be 5. For instance, if I eat an Atkins bar, it's got a ton of carbohydrates in it, but it also has so much fiber and some other things that take the net carbs down to like 2 or 3. So,
yeah.
But hopefully it's working. I try to get into ketosis. When I get into ketosis, my body's not burning carbohydrates anymore because there aren't any left, and it starts burning fat. And so if I'm exercising more, it's going to speed up that process of burning off those extra carbs, and then it gets into the fat. And then when I get into ketosis, I'll start losing weight. But it's tough to get into ketosis.
You got to stop with all the Bud Lights, man.
Yeah, I've gone to Michelob Ultra, and let's just say it keeps me hydrated. It is very watersome. I'm going to be in what I'm calling a keto cave this weekend. I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to drink any beers. Liquor, nothing. I'm going to be good and watch some professional football and eat my dry roasted salted edamame beans.
So the Bucks are not playing this weekend. Is that what you're just saying?
The Bucks.
The professionals are playing this weekend.
Yeah, the Bucks are out, man. They do have the 7th pick of the draft though, and I'm sticking with my earlier prediction that Bradley Chubb is the man. Bradley the Chubbster, and that's not to be confused with the Chubb from Georgia. He was an excellent running back. But Bradley Chubb, man's going to get it done. I think you got to get some help for Gerald McCoy.
You think they should pick a running back?
No, well, not early. I don't think that. Well, if the kid from Penn State's still on the board and Bradley Chubb's gone, I think that might be a difficult decision. But you got to get a defensive line.
Yeah.
You got to get a defensive and offensive line.
I keep hearing these people who say, "What if he's available? What if that guy Barkley's available? What if he's available?"
I think we've got some good running backs.
Need it. Like, that's not our biggest problem.
It's not. And, a lot of people argue this year that we didn't go out and get the kid from Florida State last year, and they thought that somehow would change our season. But it wouldn't have, because we didn't have problems at running back. I mean, did Doug Martin perform as he should? No. But Peyton Barber stepped up and played well. Jaquiz played well. Charles Sims is definitely, he's capable of doing good things, especially out of the backfield. So I think he can run with by committee next season. But you got to hit the other holes that we need.
Yeah, and plus it's just the draft is supposed to be a very deep draft for running back too, and there's guys in there that you can pick up in free agency, rookie free agents that you can sometimes pick up as running backs. You never know with running backs,
man. You never know. I mean, look at what the kid from Tennessee, who plays for New Orleans now, Kamala or whatever.
Oh, Kamara.
Yeah. I mean, that kid's excellent, and he didn't go really high, I believe.
He might have been a second-round pick. So for a running back, I mean, that's.
But there were definitely running backs that went before him that hadn't had near the success. How about the kid from Toledo, Kareem Hunt? He certainly didn't go in the first round. So maybe late in the draft, or even like you say in free agency, we can come out. And with the shelf life of a running back being so short, it's so unpredictable anyway as to how long they're going to last before they take that first.
And that was the thing. I mean, looking back, it sounded like a good idea, but when the Bucks drafted Doug Martin, they went back up into the first round, and the whole idea was so that they could get him with the last pick in the first round, so that they could offer him that 5th-year option. And there's a little bit, I guess, better pay in the first round than the second round, but to do that for a running back, though, I'm not sure. I mean, because shelf life of a running back is usually not 5 years. I mean, it's tough. And so why, again, what's the purpose of picking someone in the first round? Unless it's going to be a generational type running back, there's no reason to really pick somebody in the first
No,
round.
I don't think so. And those running backs don't come around to it that often. And some people would argue that the kid from Penn State is that running back. I'm not so sure he is. He wasn't a Heisman finalist, I don't believe, was he? So, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody in the draft this year, honestly, who you want to pass up on Bradley Chubb for.
Yeah.
And that's my pick at defensive lineman, just because he has that motor that doesn't stop running. He's going to demand attention from offensive linemen. He's fast on the edge. He's got long arms. He's going to knock down passes. I think he can wreak havoc enough to where you might have to single cover Gerald McCoy. And there's not going to be very many more years where you have to double cover Gerald McCoy. I mean, let's think he's in his, seventh season, seventh season. When he gets to that 9 or 10th season, he's going to be able to block him with one person. So we got to shore that up, and the defensive backfield. Let's not be a dead horse. We've talked about that. We got to fix that problem. How about John Gruden to the Raiders?
Well, I'm not sure. Look, $100-something million, 10 years. And the idea that this the Raiders, Mark Davis was saying that he's been trying to get Gruden for 6 years. Which essentially means it's kind of nice to know that after the fact. It's like, hey, I know we dated for the last, but I've been really after this other girl for the past 6 years. And so, I mean, all these coaches, essentially, they're saying is we hired them because we couldn't get Gruden.
It's honest, but I mean, anything that comes with a guy with that haircut, I don't take very seriously. Anybody that goes to Supercuts and asks for the 1970s 7-year-old haircut, which is kind of similar to John Gruden's haircut, so you might actually have a little bit of similarities. There might be some relation there between the two. But Mark Davis, I can kind of agree with what he's saying though. Like, does anybody really want Jack Del Rio? I mean, he did well that 2 years ago. But this year, man, what a flop. It was very similar to what the Bucs did this year. And then for Gruden to say that, even though he went to Tampa Bay and was traded to Tampa Bay, he's always been a Raider.
I know.
So was he a Raider when he won the Super Bowl here? Was he a Raider when he's inducted to the Ring of Honor just a couple of weeks ago? I kind of took that a little personally.
So what do you think the chances are that he becomes a member of the Oakland Ring of Honor or whatever they have?
I think that was actually part of his deal for Coach. Yeah. He gets $100 million. They go ahead and induct him in the Ring of Honor. And then they're going to name a casino after him in Nevada.
Because, I mean, look, it would be something, but I just don't think you can. I think it's the circumstances that came together in Tampa Bay to win a Super Bowl title in his first year. It's like a perfect storm. I mean, maybe not a perfect storm, but it's a pretty dang good mix of circumstances. And I don't know that they're going to happen.
No, they're not going to
Oakland. Or L.A. or
Vegas. It's a pretty good situation there, though. I mean, you've got very good receivers. You have a quarterback who signed the big contract, who had the big year, did not so much this year, but I think John Gruden feels like he can mold him a little bit. The defense is pretty strong. But I think that there's a lot of things that he can do in the offseason to improve them, depending on how much money they have. After they give John Gruden $100 million, I'm not sure how much money they have left to go around to go out and get some players on that defense.
Well, I mean, thankfully they have the salary floor, and I don't think John would go to go to Oakland unless they were planning to spend to the cap. So I'm pretty sure they're going to go out there and spend some money, but I just don't look this. I'm not sold that John can turn around. They'll put fans in the seats, and there'll be a lot of excited.
I mean, they had a bad year, but that's a good team. What do you think about the anticipated relationship between John Gruden and Marshawn Lynch?
I don't think Marshawn Lynch's going to play much longer in Oakland. That's what I think. Yeah.
Is he going to be forced to practice and all that stuff?
He didn't do so well this year, so I'm not sure. It's one of those things that people will put up with your crap when you're playing well. Yeah. When you're not playing so well.
Well, ask Keyshawn Johnson about that here in Tampa. They paid him a lot of money to sit on the bench.
Yeah. Because I think I started the year with Marshawn on my fantasy team, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I can't fault you for that because I did the same thing and finished last place.
Yeah, I got 9th, I think.
I was in beast mode, I guess.
So we were going to talk about some of the playoffs, but I wanted to. They announced the games over in London for the NFL. And
we're still doing that.
I know.
Why are we doing that?
I don't know.
Players hate it.
It's and here we have the Seahawks. So we have Seattle and Oakland, Philly and Jacksonville, and then the Chargers, LA Chargers. Like, you're making these. I mean, it's bad enough to be on the East Coast and go to England.
Yeah.
These are West Coast teams having to travel, and what's the point of a West Coast? Like, that's not. Like, at least put cities that have something in common, whether it's the Boston or New York or these other that you could maybe get a following. Tampa Bay.
I think there's a lot of things San Diego and London have in common.
Yes.
They both have bridges.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't get it. Poor Jacksonville seems like they have to go there every year. Yeah. And you lose a home game. And think of the revenue that you're losing from having a home game. And I don't know if Jacksonville's actually losing a home game this year, but teams have to be, half those teams are losing home games. They're going over there. And what is the final goal? I mean, what's the end here?
TV ratings in England.
Is it TV ratings, or are we going to put a team over there?
I don't know how they're going to put a team. If they do, it's going to. But I think they just want TV.
We're also doing Mexico City too, right?
Well, that's it. I think they're taking like northern teams and taking them down to Mexico City. It's like, why not take teams from Nevada? You put the Vegas team when they come in.
It seemed like Oakland played down there this past year, which kind of makes sense. San Diego, they go down.
Yeah, Texas teams. I mean, at least like there's somewhat of a geographic following for those people, but.
Maybe we can get a team in Tijuana, the Tijuana Donkey Punchers.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's some safety issues. And that's the other thing with Mexico City is the safety. Like, I don't want to.
I mean, is it any worse than Oakland?
Well, it's true. You can drink the water in Oakland at least.
I don't know. That wouldn't try.
I've drank the water in Oakland.
You drank the water in Oakland?
Yeah.
Well, hey, you look fine. I guess.
I did have blue hair on at the time, but
yes, you did. I see it in your interviews. It's very impressive. All right, so we've got 4 games this weekend. Want to get your take, Dan, on the first one? Actually, let's see what we got here. Last week's results: we had the Titans over the Chiefs. We had the Falcons upset the Rams. We had the Jaguars beat the Bills, and the Saints beat the Panthers. So we still have 2 NFC South teams left. We had 3 to begin with. Probably the strongest division. We'll give that to the Bucs at least. But who do you think is going to win the matchups this week? So it looks like we have the Eagles are going to take on the Saints. Is that right? Or no, the Saints are going to play the Vikings. Yeah.
Vikings.
And the Eagles are going to play the Jaguars. Is that right? Jaguars play the Steelers. Yeah, Saints, Vikings, Jaguars, Steelers.
I'm looking at it, and you're getting me all confused. I'm like thinking, what conference?
Titans, Patriots, Falcons, Eagles. So we got a bird off. What do you think about the bird
between
fight?
the new birds?
The bird fight.
Well, I think considering that Philly is without their starting quarterback, you have to pretty much go with Atlanta here. I mean, they looked pretty good last week. Their offense is kind of seemingly got it in firing, and what's his name? The offensive coordinator seems like he's got things rolling, and I just don't see that Philly is going to.
Too many weapons. Yeah. Well, I think I agree. With the Eagles having Carson Wentz playing, it would have been a totally different story. But I think they've lost all their steam. Napoleon Dynamite's not going to be able to do it. Titans, Patriots. Well, I'm just asking as a formality.
The Titans? No, it's going to be New England.
Yeah, I think New England wins at home. Jaguars, Steelers, state champions here. Jacksonville Jaguars.
I think it's tempting to want to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars, but when you only have 87 yards of passing, or I don't know if that was rushing or passing, but it was near that.
It might have been total.
Yeah, I think
it was bad. I watched it. It was such a boring game.
I don't know
their defense is so good they can't get any help from their offense. It looks like Tim Tebow at quarterback. It might be.
And they're talking about like Jacksonville's going to need like a pick 6 or a pick 12 to compete.
That could happen. That could happen. The Steelers' run defense not all that good. Forsett might be able to eat the clock up, chew up some clock. If they're able to do that, I think that's a key that they could stay in the game.
Is Brown playing in this game?
I believe Antonio Brown is playing. He's had a week break. I think he's going to play. I think the Steelers, who lost to the Jaguars early in the season, as one of their only 3 losses. I think they blow Jacksonville out. I think they figure out that defense. Ben Roethlisberger comes out firing. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl, so I think the Steelers are going to win. How about the last one? Saints at the Vikings, playing in Minneapolis. The Dome's going to be rocking. Saints looked good last week.
I am going to go with the Saints. I just trust Drew Brees. I mean, he's been there and done that. If there's Pretty much. I mean, to me, Drew Brees is like that quarterback. Maybe you go with Brady, but I think I would pick Drew Brees if I had to have one quarterback. Game-winning drive in the last, with 30 seconds to go, I'm probably taking Drew Brees. I've seen him go down that field so fast, so many years, and you just kind of think of in a situation like this.
There's no doubt that Drew Brees is probably the most accomplished quarterback, maybe besides Ben Roethlisberger, left in the playoff. Well, I don't know. Think about this.
Well,
let me think of it. You got Tom Brady, you got Ben Roethlisberger, and Drew Brees still left in the playoffs, and Matt Ryan. All four quarterbacks who've either played or won a Super Bowl. That's pretty impressive. I didn't realize that. But yeah, Drew Brees gets all the respect in the world for me. He is the real deal and always has been, and he's a class act. However, I think that Vikings defense is going to harass him a little too much. He's getting a little up in his age. I don't think he's quite as mobile as he used to be. I think the crowd in the Vikings defense overwhelmed Brees. I think Case Keenum just cuts down on mistakes. The Vikings are able to run the ball, keep the clock going, and I think the Vikings win by a field goal. And I think they go on to play the Falcons.
Well, then, do you have the Falcons back in the Super Bowl?
I don't. I have the Vikings as the first team ever to play at home in the Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So let's see, what happens here? So if New Orleans wins, so if it's New Orleans and Atlanta, the game looks like it would be in New Orleans.
It's an all NFC South, NFC Championship game. In that game, I would take the Falcons.
Yeah,
that would be in New Orleans, though, right?
Yeah, it would be in New Orleans.
They're conference champions.
Yeah, although they did lose to the Bucks, so.
They did. There was a couple of years ago when we were pretty bad, where we beat both teams in the Super Bowl. It's in a given Sunday, man. It's just a team that's ready to play. It's a game of inches. Hey, I tell you what, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about politics. We're going to talk about some immigration, some DACA immigration, comprehensive immigration reform. We're going to give kind of our take on what we should do. There's a lot of different people who think a lot of different things about the obvious problem we have of 12 million undocumented people here in the United States. I don't want to call them aliens, and I don't like to call them illegal, but they are undocumented. So let's take a quick break, play some music, and we'll come back and we'll talk about immigration. So don't go away. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We had some listeners that said they couldn't hear us. Hopefully now you can hear us fine. We are on Mixlr. So if you'd like to go to mixlr.com/culturally damaged with a K, you can check us out there as well. So hopefully you can hear us. Sorry for anybody that's experiencing some technical difficulties with our show. We are still pretty new at this, but we are working hard at it. Dan does a really good job on the technical side, and I want to give him some props for that. Dan.
Thank you very much, sir.
Dan's also building a new studio for the office to replace the Leap and Lenny Poffel studios that we have here in Clearwater, Florida. The new one's going to be, it's announced right now that it's also going to be in Clearwater, Florida.
Yes, it's going to be in Clearwater, yes.
Somewhere near here. We're going to do we're looking for names. If anybody would like to drop a little bit of money,
or a lot
of money for cost of expenses for the new office, we would be willing to name the office after you. And as you know, Leap and Lenny Poffel and a couple of other people donated to this one, and that's why we have it. But the new one, we would like for you to be the name that we say all the time. Yeah. So throw us a few bucks. Hey, and if you give us some and it's not the most, who knows? You might be the highest bidder, and you might win. So just send us a check that's payable to Dan Perry, and that's at 8. We'll see. What address would you like the money to be sent to?
1217 Ponce Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida 33756.
Yes, send your checks, and you may be the person that we name the office after. We'll even put a little nameplate on the front so that when very popular people come in, we've done interviews with John Gruden, we've had interviews with Warren Sapp,
Evan Longoria,
all the local superstars. When they come in, they'll say, "Wow, that who is that?" And we'll explain them, who you are.
Yeah. I can't wait to have Dave Ellis running for judge.
Dave Ellis is running for judge? Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, I think our listeners heard a little bit last week. So Chris and I are working with Attorney Dave Ellis, and he's running for Circuit Court circuit court judge here in the Sixth Circuit, Pinellas Pasco.
Good guy, saw the earth. I know we're a little partial, but good guy. Dave Ellis should be number 2 on your ballot, number 1 in your heart.
Yes, but
give him a vote.
Yes. Many votes early and often, as they do in the on the left.
Yeah, where's the proof of that? That reminds me,
I don't need no stinking proof.
The council that was supposed to investigate the voter fraud out in California disbanded recently with not much fanfare. Another one of those things. Moving on to politics, I guess. This is the fun part of the show. A lot of talk recently about immigration reform. For those of you who aren't familiar with DACA, we have several 100,000, probably near 700,000 people that are here in the U.S. because their parents came here illegally, and they came here essentially illegally when they were children. They had no choice. They came here, and ever since then they've been able to stay. But that legislation is running out, and if we don't create some new legislation for those people who are here, many of which have been here 15, 20 years by no fault of their own, have set up a life, many of them have gone to school, and it's also required that they don't get into any trouble, that they're working, So these are citizens, not citizens, but they are legally here, and it's very possible that if we don't pass DACA legislation, that those 700,000 or so people that are here in the United States, not by their choice but by their parents' choice, will be deported to wherever they came from. Do you have any feelings on that?
Well, I just wanted to make one thing is now once DACA was reversed by President Trump, or just unsigned, whatever. Those people who are living here are not technically legal, though. Correct? Under DACA, DACA did make them legal, but currently, without DACA, they would be illegal.
That's right, but DACA is still in place, and the president, Trump, has said that and said during the campaign that he would get rid of DACA, that DACA would no longer be that those people had no place in the United States. We often call these people dreamers. You've probably heard that before. These are people who are not here because of their own choice, and many of which are very contributory to our society and have jobs. I mean, if they get in trouble, they're deported. These aren't people. These aren't people in gangs per se.
No, I look, there is a big issue, and there's a lot of, both sides of the issue, because at one point we are encouraging people to come to this country and bring their children, or at least not punishing people for doing it, but at the same time, the other side of the argument is, again, is it fair that you have a parents that bring a child over at 2 years old, and they've been enrolled in school for 15 years, and the only life they know is life in the United States, and now someone's going to say, look, you need to go back to Guatemala, or you have to go back to Ecuador, or wherever, and it's a big,
So you're say you're
it's
20,
a dilemma there.
You're 25 years old. Your parents brought you here when you were 2. You have no recollection of ever being in Guatemala. So your parents may be even dead now. Maybe they went back. You don't even know what part of Guatemala that you're technically from. All you know is the United States of America, and you've made a living here, and you've made your life better by being here, and you're told to go home. What kind of life do you start in Guatemala as an American who's grown up here in this society? And my second part of that is there were 2 things that you mentioned. One, punish. By saying we're not punishing these people, but why would we want to punish the kids? We do punish the parents because they're illegal immigrants, and we should. And I think that's what comprehensive immigration reform is meant to do, is meant to punish the people who do come over here illegally. But when they have the kids who come with them, it's a moral dilemma. We can't talk about punishment. We can't punish them for something that they had no choice in doing, correct?
Well, I mean, that's the issue, is whether you can or not. I don't think that we want to punish these people and the children and the others. The other reality, though, is that these people, as you've mentioned, these are not necessarily problematic people or anything like that. Most of these people are trying to make a better life for themselves. They're invested in education. They're trying to make a better life for themselves. And then when they're trying to make a better life for themselves, they're trying to make a better life for this country. So the vast majority of those people are, would be good contributing members of society, and I think the country needs more of those people, to make things work.
Well, the policy was established by the Obama administration in June of 2012 and was rescinded by the Trump administration in September 2017. The president saying that he wanted to kick this to Congress. He's saying that this isn't a personal shot at immigrants, that he thinks this is something that shouldn't be done by executive order, that should be done by Congress. Completely understandable to a degree. However, the timing is a little questionable. Why don't we, you're the president of the United States. You have the majority in both houses. Why can't you push through legislation before you rescind it, just to make sure that these people aren't deported, or that they don't have to wake up every morning worried that they're going to be deported to a place that likely they don't even remember being?
Well, unfortunately, I think politics is always going to play a part in all of this stuff, and so it's probably, the reality is that if we didn't have DACA, if DACA wasn't on the table, or there wasn't a deadline to get it, that there would be very little motivation for people on the other side of the aisle to negotiate and work with the president on comprehensive immigration reform.
Now, let's keep in mind that these people that are dreamers in the DACA program, they are registered. We do know where they are. They do have to report. These aren't people who climbed over a fence or swam across the Rio Grande to get here, which leads me to my next issue. Is part of what the president is trying to accomplish yesterday, the day before yesterday, and today, is an agreement for a DACA bill, and the Democrats want a clean DACA bill, which is a bill by itself with nothing else in it, just that says those people that are here now, just now, that are DACA people can stay and have a path to citizenship. And in exchange for that, the president wants a border wall. He's asked for $18 billion to go towards building a wall that's, I believe, 12,000 miles long along the border of Mexico and the United States. One thing that I think that should be brought up to our listeners and any other listeners that's out there, is that over half now of the illegal immigrants that are coming to the United States each year are coming with a visa, and they're overstaying their visa. So just a couple of years ago, for the first time, there are actually more immigrants illegally here, not because of crossing the Mexican border, or any border for that matter, but coming here legally with a visa, several different types of visa, whether it be a school visa, whether it be a vacation or visiting visa, a work visa, but they're coming and then they're staying afterwards, and they're not being arrested afterwards, they're not being deported.
Well, and I would say to me that those people, and part of this is still a safety issue, and I know we haven't been attacked in years, but at least those people, we do know who they are because they are registering through a process. There's an ID, there's there's gone through some sort of vetting process. At least one would hope, or one that our country does that. As opposed to people who are crossing the border illegally, there is no, they're not being stopped and ID'd and fingerprinted and all these other things getting into the system. So at least the people who are staying on their visas, we generally know where they are. I mean, they are registered. There's some sort of family presence. If you really needed to find them, you probably could, compared to the others. So I mean, there is a safety argument. I understand more people are here from that method, but safety issues still.
Well, I guess the question becomes that if you want to spend 18, and by the way, it's a 2,000-mile border wall. I totally went too far on that one. 2,000-mile border wall costing approximately, I think it's going to cost more than this, $18 billion of taxpayer money. We were told during the elections that what?
Mexico's going to pay.
Mexico's going to pay for it. That turns out to be complete baloney. We're asking the taxpayers now to foot the bill for $18 billion just to start with, to build a wall in which half the people who are here illegally are here because they were allowed in. They didn't cross the border. And it tells me a couple of things. One thing it tells me when we have people here who are overstaying visas are, these people aren't even necessarily coming from Mexico. They could be coming from any country.
Most likely they're not coming from Mexico.
Okay, so we say half the illegal people here aren't coming from Mexico. But we want to spend $18 billion on keeping Mexicans from coming across the border, when all they have to do is get a visa to come over if they want to come over anyway, and then just stay. So the State Department issues these visas. Why don't we spend more money funding the State Department to better enforce visas? Because we're not doing that. When people overstay their visas, they're not being enforced at all. No one's going after them. There's no ICE agents going after them, trying to find them to send them away somewhere. Why can't we spend more money on enforcing that instead of building a wall, or maybe just build a wall in certain places? Not all along the border.
Well, I think the reality is that, at some point there's going to be that's how it's going to be. The wall is going to be constructed in different methods and different ways in different places. And certain areas it could just be a fence. In certain areas, there's no reason to build a wall in the true middle of a desert to where there is no access. But there's a lot of areas where there's roads that are very close to, it might be in the desert, but there's a road fairly close to it. So as long as the other side, they can get you that close enough to the road, it's still a position.
Well, let me tell you, this was said throughout the campaign, because many administrations before Trump on both sides have said that we need to build our border stronger in certain places. But this president said, no, we're going to build a wall, the Great Wall that's going to go 2,000 miles, that's going to go all the way across the border. And he kept shooting down the fact, even though that immigration experts were saying time and time again that we don't need a wall throughout the whole thing. And that was the thing. He said, no, I'm not going to build a partial wall. I'm going to build a full wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Yeah. Now he's going back on that. He's agreeing with you. He's saying, oh, well, after talking to some experts about it, like he couldn't do that when he was a candidate, talk to some experts about it, say, we just build a wall in certain places. If they want to go around it in other places, they can. If they want to walk through the desert, they can. That's fine. And by the way, we're not going to pay for it. Or Mexico's not going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it. And somehow, in some kind of scheme, he's saying that they're going to end up paying for it in the long run, or they're going to pay us back for it. But that's a lie. Plain and simple, it's a lie.
We'll see. I mean, there are certain ways through, whether it's taxation or tariffs and different things like that Mexico could be made to pay a certain amount. And politicians, they like to, even though I know he's not a politician, but he's still a businessman. And business and politics work the same kind of way to a certain extent. But
he is a politician too. He's full of
it. But typically, as many people will promise, this may have been his goal, and that's what he wanted to do. But the reality is that just not going to happen. Congress is not going to pass a budget that's going to fund that type of a.
Well, if they don't,
a full wall.
If they don't, it's not going to get done. And so you're basically telling me that it's not going to get done. Let me tell you right now, as a progressive, I'm often viewed as someone who just wants our borders to be open, because that's what Trump tells people. That's what Fox News tells people. It's not true. All of us that are here enjoy the benefits of being a U.S. citizen. Not because, at least for me, not because I fought for it, or it was basically just because I was born here. But I still enjoy those freedoms and the benefits of being a United States citizen. I don't think that just anybody should be able to walk across the border and enjoy those as well. But I do believe that if they go through the right steps, that we should make it easy enough for them, if they want to make a better life for themselves, to come to the United States. But I'm not for people being here unregistered, undocumented, and illegally. But at the same time, we have to think about what is practical in getting 12 million people out of this country. Or why is it so taboo to provide a path of amnesty for people that are here? I mean, how do we go about doing that? If we're going to do comprehensive immigration reform, I mean, how are we going to start? Are we going to start shipping these people out?
No, I mean, and I think that's part of this, in that, the Republican view on this has always been, we need to get the border secured, and then we can talk about what do we do with the people who are here. And part of that, to me, part of that thing is that if you say, and this has been the argument, and this is, but, if you say, look, January 19, this is what the new law is going to be, and, you'll have a flood of people coming in before that new law takes into effect. And so, to me, if you can secure, you do have to, you have to at some point decide what you're going to do with these people. Meaning in a way that you're not kicking them out, because it's not realistic. We can't kick out a few people but people on an overstayed visa where we know where they are, much less this unknown mass of people who are everywhere. living in places that they don't necessarily want to be found. So, we do need to find a way to know who's coming into this country, have special programs, because there's certain people that we need. Uh-oh.
I'm a winner!
He's got a porn pop-up window.
All right, get rid of it. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, though. Or she didn't mean to cut you off. Rude. Very rude. But no, I understand where you're coming from, and providing some type of path for these people to say, all right, listen, you come in here, we get you registered, you get a job, you're here. It's not like we just hand you citizenship when you walk in the office. We put you through a program where you have to be tested. We may, I wouldn't even be totally and 100% against them trying to at least learn different languages for them to be more successful in the United States. And that's pretty controversial of a thing for me to say, being from my side. Always says that, there's no sponsored language in the United States or official language in the United States. But let's face it, if we all spoke the same language, it would be a lot easier. But we do embrace the fact that we do have diversity. But if we bring these people in and we put them through a long program, sort of like we do people that we put in pretrial intervention programs, and I don't mean to compare these people with criminals because I don't think they're criminals, but if we put them through a program to kind of Americanize them and to make sure that we know that they're not going to be criminals when they're here, make sure that we know that they're going to be a contributing part of our society, why not give them that path?
Well, the other side of this too is who's going to pay for that, and so one other argument would be look,
$18 billion for a wall, we can use it for that.
But if these people want to come to this country, then maybe they should be investing in learning the language and doing these other things instead of us providing them this. These different things like that.
That's an understandable thing to say. There's a lot of people that would jump down your throat for saying that, and I'm certainly not one of them. I think that we've created a culture here that makes us successful in a lot of things that we do, and I think would it be a lot easier and cheaper on the taxpayer if everybody did speak the same language? It would be, but that's another thing when we're talking about what's practical. Is it practical to deport 12 million people? No. Is it practical to make 12 million people, or however many people it is that don't speak English, that do not speak English? I'm making sure when I say that I'm speaking good English. But is it practical that we teach them? I know in schools, I often hear teachers complain, I have kids who can't speak English, I can't teach them anything. And we don't have the means to bring somebody into every classroom, and that's a part, a big issue now.
Well, these, and not to get too far off the issue, but this comes up with special needs students as well. And there's this, and we've done the same thing within our communities, where we want to have everything mainstreamed, and we've done this with people I say projects because that's what they used to be, but what do you call it? Not supportive housing, but federal subsidized housing and different things. But instead of having projects, we want to have homes that are just, we rent homes wherever they are. But it does cause unique problems, and the same thing with, when you have people without language barriers. I tried to, I had a guardianship hearing in Hillsborough, and the guardian only spoke Spanish. They were from Cuba. It's a family from Cuba. Grandfather has some dementia issues, and so, but one of the issues was that there's a course to be taught for professional or non-professional guardians. So the problem is it's only taught in English. And if you try to have an interpreter there, well, you can't have somebody over-talking what the person who's teaching is doing it. And so even if you do have it can't be taught in all these different languages, and,
Yeah, it makes it difficult. And as a trial attorney, I'm in court a lot, and I can tell you right now that it holds up court very often that we have people who speak different languages have to come in. We have to bring an interpreter in, or we have to call an interpreter phone line and put that on the record. And oftentimes the judges will make those people go last. And, sometimes that doesn't hold it up, but, it's an issue. It's an issue. It costs the taxpayers money. But at the same time, why can't we meet halfway? Why can't Americans try to learn different languages? I know we're never going to learn every language, but we're one of the only countries where our citizens only know one language on a mass level. why can't we try harder to kind of accommodate people at times? But the argument I know from the right and from many people that I know is that why should we have to accommodate them when we're the ones providing the benefits for them to come over to our great land and for them to come over and reap our benefits? Why can't they just assimilate to us? And I do understand that point too, but I think at some point we need to be accommodating on both sides.
But even that, and see, I don't even, I try not to even look at it like that. I look at it in what is best for people just in general, and your prospects for employment are better if you know more than one language. So I mean, it's almost, it's absurd because it doesn't matter. Yes, English speaking, we are the largest. But we're not even the largest, English speakers might be the largest worldwide, but I doubt it. I mean, you have Chinese, you have,
I don't believe English is the most widely spoken language.
So I mean, Spanish,
Mandarin.
Yeah, and so I mean, all these other things, and there's a lot of business opportunities that are out there for people who can speak multiple languages. And so for me, if I was somebody, I would say, look, I want my kids to learn multiple languages because it's an advantage to them. I mean, on a global scale.
It would be.
Because that's what we do. We compete globally. We don't just compete anymore with, even you and I as attorneys, we don't just compete with people in Clearwater. We compete with them all over the state and even all over the world now.
We don't, but Americans are isolationists. Yeah. And we believe that the rest of the world should follow us and that the universe kind of revolves around what we do. We're the trendsetters, and that's been true for a very long time. But now that we have a global economy, I believe what you're saying is absolutely correct. That you are broadening your marketability extremely when you can learn several languages. I wish I would have paid more attention in Spanish class when I was a kid. Yeah. I wish I would have paid more attention in a lot of classes, but that's certainly one of them because I would definitely be reaping the benefits of it now by making a lot more money in my market.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think the problem is probably the fact that we wait until high school to teach a foreign language, and the way they talk about it is that the younger you are that you start, the much easier it is to pick up an extra language, and you could probably learn 2 or 3 languages if you start them in the much younger age brackets.
At the age of 35, I bought Rosetta Stone. And I was going through it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I lost patience with it. But I still want to do it, though. That's one of the things on my bucket list is to learn a second language. So I'm going to challenge myself to do it. And at least if we ever do have kids, if we can find a woman that would tolerate and like us and want to spawn children with us.
Marry a Spanish-speaking woman, and
there
that will
we
help
go.
you.
But yeah, Jeb Bush did that. It's great politically too. You can go to both sides. Well, hey, that's about all the time we have today. We've covered a lot of stuff. Dan, congratulations again on your weight loss.
Thank you.
Diet. That's amazing. Keep it up, man. Hopefully you can give me some pointers, and I'm going to keep doing my thing. But we'll be back next week, hopefully around the same time, and we'll talk about a little bit more about the NFL and the results from this week's games and whatever's going on in the world. I'm sure we're going to talk about it.
And we'll probably mention Dave Ellis next week, too.
Dave Ellis, running for judge. Vote for him. Great guy. He's running Group 4. That's all we have, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Pay your taxes.
Peace.